Okay, good morning everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Baruchim Haba. We're continuing in Mishna Berura, Daf Hashavua. We're up to Siman Kuf Zayin, and we are at the end of Seif Aleph. The Mechaber said that if you're Mesupik, if you daven, you have to daven again. We saw in the Ber Halacha that according to the Rashba, the implication is that there's an obligation to daven elsewhere. It implies that it's you're allowed to daven. And the way the Ber Halacha interpreted that is that since you're allowed to daven, it's like you're showing a bad attitude toward tefillah if you don't take advantage of that opportunity. So the Mechaber said that if you're mesubik, if you daven again. You don't have to be mechadesh anything like you ordinarily would if you wanted to daven a Tefilas Nedava. But if you know you davened, you don't daven again unless you're mechadesh. If you are mechadesh, you could daven again as a Tefilas Nedava as many times as you want, except for Tefilas Musaf and Shabbos and Yom Tif. You can't daven Tefilas Nedava. And if you started to daven thinking you didn't previously daven, and now you remembered you actually did, you can change gears and all of a sudden go into Tefilas Nedava. Says Mishna Berura Siv Katan Daled, Umispalo b'Nedava. And you daven a Tefilas Nedava, purest dafka b'Nedava. This is talking about you know you davened. Then if you want to daven again, you would have to daven with a chiddush. So says Mishna Berura, dafka b'Nedava. If you want to daven after you already davened, you have to do it as a Nedava. Aval Hashem chayva. But to do it l'shem chayva, afilu b'chidash aser. It would be aser even b'chidash. So dafka b'Nedava, but l'shem chayva, even b'chidash, it would be aser. So you need two things. You need a chidush and you need a Nedava. L'shem chayva, even b'chidash would be aser. V'had ba'inan chidush b'Nedava. That which you need a chidush b'Nedava, the idea chidush, meaning what's the idea that you're mechadesh something when you daven a Tefilas Nedava? That through a chidush, minkar mitoicha, it's recognizable shetfilasa hi l'shem tachanunim v'loi l'shem chayva. Then with the chidush, it becomes recognizable that you're doing it in a supplicative manner and not as an obligation. Uveloi chiddush, if you don't have a chiddush, mechzi kamisha oisal l'shem chayva. Looks like you're doing it as an obligation. So in other words, what the chiddush does is it solidifies and establishes that what you're doing is a Nedava. Because if you don't do anything new, then it just looks like you're executing an obligation. V'ayim b'beis Yosef, shaber das HaTorah. Look in the Beis Yosef, explains that the opinion of the Torah is, du'a dina mispal tefillah shaloi b'tayras chayva. The same thing would be if you daven a tefillah not b'tayras chayva. V'gam lo yiskaven b'lashum Nedava. And also, you're not mechaben for a Nedava. Look in the Beis Yosef, who explains the Torah, that the same thing would apply if you're davening not l'shem chayva and you're not mechaven l'shem Nedava v'hu mechadesh ba the shaper dami the al yidei hachidush minkar shi l'shem tachnunim. So the Beis Yosef has a big chidush that it's not necessary to be mechaven l'shem Nedava, even if you're not mechaven l'shem Nedava, but you're not mechaven l'shem chayva and you're mechadesh, that shows you're doing it as tachanunim. So the main nekuda is not davening it as an Nedava, the main nekuda is being mechadesh. The Bir Halacha says that from the Rambam it's mashma that you need to explicitly be mechavein l'shem Nedava, but from the Beis Yosef it's mashma, it's not necessary to explicitly be mechavein l'shem Nedava. It would be okay as long as you're mechavein, as long as you're moisef ba'davar. Okay. Now, except for Tefilas Musaf. For Nusaf, there are no Tefilas Nedava. Even Rosh Chodesh and Chalamayid. I mean, the question is, why does the Mechaber have to spell out even for Musaf? He says there's no Tefilas Nedava on Shabbos. But the point is, even of Rosh Chodesh and Chalamayid, since you're saying, Umusafim kihil chasam, V'hamusafin einam kravim ela mishal tzibur, and the musafim can only be brought from the tzibur. Ve'ena yachid yachal enadav oisam, and an individual cannot be menadev them. Ve'ayin ba'achroinim shekasu, look in the achroinim that write. The lefizeh, the Tefilas musaf. The achroinim write that according to this, by musaf, v'adin b'Shabbos v'Yom Tov, and likewise by Shabbos or Yom Tov, b'chol ha-Tefilas. The same thing on Shabbos and Yom Tov by all the Tefilas. Im nestapik im espalel oisam. If you're mesupik, if you daven them, any yachal achsul espalel oisam, you can't go back. Darit tzarach lahasnois. You need to make a t'nai v'chanal b'sivkat and beis, like we said earlier. V'ze'ino yachal lahasnois. So whenever you're mesupik, if you daven on Shabbos or not, you're not allowed to go back, because you can only go back misafik through the t'nai that if I'm chayiv to daven, if I'm not chayiv to daven, it's a Tefilas Nedava, but you can't offer a Tefilas Nedava on Shabbos. V'ayin l'kaman b'sim kuf chavdal sif aleph b'bir halacha. So let's say, Rabbi say, if Rosh Chodesh comes out Erev Shabbos, and Shabbos is not Rosh Chodesh, and you forgot Ya'aleh V'yavai by Mincha, then could you daven 2 Shemone Esreis for Mariv? Well, you say, how could I daven another Shemone Esrei? Well, I have to, because I didn't daven Mincha with Ya'aleh V'yavai. Yeah, but the Mariv doesn't have a Ya'aleh V'yavai. So there's a tzad to say, by davening again, you're not adding anything. So it's a big suffix in halacha. What do we ordinarily do? We say daven again, and in case you're not chayiv, you daven it should be as a Tefilas Nedava. But that's not an option on Shabbos. That's why you need, if Rosh Chodesh is Friday, and Shabbos is not Rosh Chodesh, you really don't want to forget Ya'aleh V'yavai, because then it's basically, there's no way to fix it. Now, potentially an Eitzah could be, if you're not sure if you daven on Shabbos, you could be the Shliach Tzibor. However, the Pri Megadim says it will not help by listening to Chazaras Hashatz, only if you say it yourself. Why are there, why Eino Mispalal on Shabbos Tefilas Nedava Klal? So the Mishnah says, L'fi she'ein Nedar Nedava is craving bahem, because there are no karbanos of Nedar Nedava on Shabbos. Afilu Yachal, even if you could be Mechadesh something. Why? This is talking about where you thought you didn't daven, so you started davening as a chiyuv, and then in the middle you remember you davened, then you can't change gears and go into Nedava. You started off l'shem choiva. You thought you didn't daven. And a chiddush won't help if you need to daven l'shem choiva. So therefore now, even if you want to finish it as an Nedava loy mahani, it's not going to help. Kivan shekvar hischal ba l'shem choiva. You already started at l'shem choiva. Di'i avshar lahavi karbanai. You can't bring a carbon shechetzioi choiva v'chetzioi Nedava. That's half a chiyav and half a Nedava. B'chol zeh k'shamaschal adas shaloi hispalal. This would all be true if you began on condition, with the mindset that you didn't daven. But if you were not sure if you daven, and you remembered in the middle that you davened, so you hear this case? Let's say you started being misupik, whether you davened or not. So you started with the t'nai, if I daven, it should be Nedava. If I didn't daven, it should be a choiva. Now for that, you don't need a chiddush. And in the middle, I remember I davened. So now I'm segueing from maybe a Nedava to definitely a Nedava. Now definitely a Nedava needs a chiddush. But it could be this does not need a chiddush. Why? Because the chiddush was how you started. V'goymer kach l'shem Nedava. You could finish it as a Nedava. T'kiven shehischal mitchila kahoigen. Since you began in the beginning properly, adaita the sveika, the suffix havik kachiddush, and suffix like a chiddush, sulei and sar chiddush. You wouldn't need a chiddush anymore. Well, levush mashma shagoymer alidei chiddush. Levush is masha, you do need to finish it with a chiddush. Efshir do outside of yosef tov. It could be that's just to make things in the most ideal possible way. I have a question for you. Is it possible to be chayiv a carbon, misafek, meaning you're not sure if you're chayiv a carbon? Could a person be mesupik whether they're chayiv? What? No. Then you bring an Asham Talai. You're mesupik whether you did one of two things, but you're not sure if you. So that's not chiyav carbon misafek. That's a vadai chiyav. Okay, is it possible? No. Could you bring a carbon oila misafek? In other words, I'm not sure if I miss Kriya Shema. Am I chayav to bring an oila? What I'm getting at is there ever a situation where I could say, if I'm chayav to bring a carbon, it's a carbon chiyav, and if it's not, it's a Nedava?
I think so. If you lose it.
Because, wouldn't it have to be? Because if, let's say, the Berura says that you can, if you started as a chiyav, you can finish as a Nedava. Why? Well, is it possible to bring a carbon that you're masna? If I'm chayiv, it should be for a chiyav, and if I'm not chayiv, it should be for a Nedava. That this whole halach is predicated on the ability to do that. Wouldn't it have to be that by karbanos you could do that? Yeah? L'chayra.
Many times, there's a sukkah like two people lost. They bring together which one's chayiv. It's minus.
Yeah, you can make it tonight. And remember, you could.
Right, that's something else. We did the problem. We don't know which group you belong to, and they ran away to a different tabora.
Okay, just checking. Sif Beis. Chidush Shamarna, this chidush that we mentioned, Hu shechadesh davar b'chal bracha. You have to innovate something in every bracha, mei ha'em sa'iyos, from the middle brachas, mei ein ha'bracha, similar to the bracha. So, in Rifa'inu, you need to ask that Yankel, his toenail should feel better. And by Baruch Aleinu, you have to say Beryl, he should get a raise this year. And by Tekaba Shofar, you have to add something new by every bracha. Even though you should be mechadesh every bracha, if you're mechadesh even one, it's enough. It's to make it known that it's an Nedava, not a chayva. See, here we're learning that it's not two different ingredients, that you need it to be for Nedava and you need a chidush. Chidush makes it's moidia that it's for Nedava. That's where the Beis Yosef was coming from, that if you're not mechave, not l'shem Nedava and not l'shem chayva, but you're moisef, then you're moidia that it's l'Nedava. You ask for something new that you never needed before. Say, Ribbon Shalom, could I have marshmallows? You never needed that before. So that would be ahisafa, meaning what would be something that you never needed before? I don't know. I need an umbrella that could serve as a sukkah.
The new volume from Maggid Harakiah.
Did you get it yet? We'll discuss that after. But
to get it, there's a
But okay, let's just read the Mishnah Beruras. We're still in the shir, so we could still be mechavein to be mekayim the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. We'll get the hang of it. We'll get the hang of it. Mei ha'em siyos. You have to be mechadish in the middle brachas. Avaloi begimel rishaynos uvegimel achronos. You don't have to be mechadish in the first three and the last three. Ukil kaman b'sim kuf yud beis. Why? Because the first three you're like an Eved Shemasadar Shevach Lefnei Rabbi, and the last three you're like an Eved who's Mekava Prasmei Rabbi, and you can't ask for anything. How do you read this Mechaber? This Chidush that we said, that you're Mechadesh something in every bracha, that's Lechatchila, and then V'em Chidesh Avim Bracha As Dayoy, that's B'di Eved? By the way, the Bir Halacha says it has to be a bakasha that you're not morgul to ask every single day. Like, Hashem, please help me remember before I start learning to be mechavein, to mekayim the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. Okay, so that will be complete Sif Beis. We'll continue as Hashem tomorrow, and I'm going to end off with a question for you to think about.